to everyone out there. Today we'll be learning about chapter 6, that is anatomy of flowering plants. You can very easily see that the structural similarities and variation in external morphology of the higher plants of living organisms, both whether be it plants or animals, it is different. So, what exactly is anatomy? Anatomy is the study of internal structure of plants is called anatomy. So after the lines are actually not much important. So we're moving on to topic number 1, the tissues. A tissue is a group of cells having a common origin and they perform a common function. So the tissue plants are made up of different kinds of tissues, and tissues are classified into two, that is meristematic and permanent. So these divisions, that is meristematic and permanent, is given on the basis of their capability to divide or not. So moving on to meristematic tissues. So growth in plants is restricted to the tip of the regions actually where active cell division takes place. Those regions are called the meristems. Plants have different kinds of meristem. The meristem which occupy or occur at the tip of the root shoot produce the primary tissues, which is called the apical meristem. Now, in the root apical meristem, it occupies the tip of the root, while shoot apical meristem, the tip of the leaves or the region of the stem axis. During the formation of leaves and the elongation of stem, some cells are left behind from the shoot apical meristem, and those constitute the axillary bud. Some buds are present in the axils of the leaves and they are capable of forming a branch of flowers. The meristem which occurs between the mature tissue is called the intercalary meristem. So, for example, grasses. Grasses, when these animals are sent for grazing, the animals have the tip, they eat the tip of the grass. So, how do the plants grow then when they have the tip? As we have learnt earlier that meristems are the tip. So here what happens is that in between the mature tissues there is something known as intercalary meristem. So that help in the regeneration of the parts removed by grazing the herbivores. That is what mentioned in the next line. So both apical meristem and intercalary meristems are the primary meristem because they appear in the early stage of the plant and contribute to the formation of the primary plant body. The meristem that occurs in the mature region produce the shoot and the root of many plants, particularly those that produce woody axis and appear later than the primary meristem is called the secondary or laterally meristem. They are cylindrical meristem, fascicular vascular cambium, interfascicular cambium and cork cambium are examples of lateral meristem. So these are actually responsible for producing secondary roots. Following divisions of cells in both primary as well as secondary meristem, the newly formed cells become structurally and functionally specialized and they lose their ability to divide. Such cells are termed as permanent or mature cells and they constitute permanent tissues. During the formation of primary plant body, specific regions of the apical meristem produce dermal tissues, ground tissues and vascular tissues. Moving on to the subtopic of the tissues, that is the permanent tissue. The cells of the permanent tissues do not generally divide further. Permanent tissues having all cells similar in structure and function are called simple tissues. So the one which is different are called complex tissues. So here the permanent tissues are further divided into simple and complex. The one which are similar is the simple tissues, and the one which are different are called the complex. Now the simple tissues are again further divided into three. So that is parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. You can see in figure 6.2 how it is divided. So let us move into detail about it. A simple tissue is made up of only one type of cell, and the various simple tissues in the plants are parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Parenchyma forms major component within the organs and their cells are generally isodiametric. Spherical, oval, round, polygonal or elongated in shape. The walls are thin and they are made up of cellulose. They may be either closely packed or have small intercellular spaces. The parenchyma performs various functions like photosynthesis, storage and secretion. See, parenchyma cells are present wherever photosynthesis takes place. That is a very specialized. So parenchyma P and photosynthesis P. You need to remember it like that. So moving on to the second type, collenchyma occurs in the layers below the epidermis, that is the outer layer of the plant. In most of the dicotyledonous plant, it is found either as a homogeneous layer or in patches. It consists of cells which are much thickened at the corners due to the deposition of cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So what happens here is that, see, the collenchyma has cells. In the picture you can see at the very end, not at the very end, at the sides it's actually thickened. It is because this deposition of the cell wall is made up of cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. That is very important. So collenchyma cells are oval, spherical, polygonal. Often they contain chloroplast. These cells assimilate food when they contain chloroplast. Intercellular spaces are absent. See, intercellular spaces are present in the parenchyma, but it is absent in the collenchyma. And they provide mechanical support to the growing parts of the plant, such as young stem or petiole of the leaf. Now moving on to sclerenchyma. It consists of a long, narrow cells with thick lignified walls having a few numerous pith. They are usually dead without chloroplast. They are usually sclerenchyma are dead without protoplast. On the basis of the variation in the form of structure, origin, the development, sclerenchyma may be fibrous or sclerites. The fibers are thick-walled, elongated and pointed cells generally occurring in groups. The various parts of the plant, the sclerites, are spherical, oval or cylindrical and highly thickened dead cells with very narrow cavities lumen. They are commonly found in the fruit wall of the nuts, pulp of the fruits like guava, pear and sapota, seed coats of the legumes and leaves of tea. Sclerenchyma provides mechanical support to the organs. So wherever mechanical support is required, we have the sclerenchyma. Collenchyma is for the growing parts. For the mechanical support, we have the collenchyma as well, but it is not a dead tissue actually, whereas sclerenchyma is a dead tissue. Intercellular spaces is present in the parenchyma. Now moving on to the complex tissue. The complex tissues are made up of more than one type of cells and those which work together as a unit. The xylem and the phloem constitute the complex tissues in the plants. Xylem functions as the conducting part for water and minerals from roots to the stem or stems to the leaf. Wherever movement of minerals is required, we have xylem there. It also provides mechanical strength to the plant parts. It is composed of 4 different kinds of elements, namely tracheids, vessels, xylem fibers and xylem parenchyma. Gymnosperms lack vessels in their xylem. Tracheids are elongated tube-like cells which is thick lignified walls and with tapering ends. These are dead without protoplasm, So you need to remember that earlier we have learned that sclerenchyma is dead without protoplasm. The same way here the tracheids are also dead without protoplasm. The inner layers of the cell walls have thickening which vary in form. In flowering plants, tracheids are vessels which main water transporting elements. The vessel is a long cylindrical tube-like structure made up of many cells called the vessel members. So the transporting vessel is actually a long cylindrical tube-like structure which is made up of many cells called the vessel member. Now, each of these lignified walls have a vessel central cavity actually. So that since they are devoid of protoplasm. Now, the vessel members are interconnected for their performance, and so what happens is they are interconnected with the common cell wall. The presence of vessels is characterized feature of the angiosperm. Xylem fibers have highly thickened walls and central lumens. These can be either septate or aseptate. Now, xylem parenchyma cells are living and they are thin-walled. So, they are living and thin. Xylem parenchyma means they are living cells made up of cellulose. Now, they store food materials in the form of starch, fat and other substances like tannins. Tannins is important. Even racin is also present in them. Now, radial conduction of water takes place by the ray of parenchymatous cell. The primary xylem is of 2 types, that is the protoxylem and the metaxylem. So the very first formed xylem is called the protoxylem, and after that, the xylem which is formed from the protoxylem is called the metaxylem. Now, the protoxylem lies towards the center of the pith. Metaxylem lies towards the periphery of the organ. This type of primary xylem is called the endarch, which means when the protoxylem is facing towards the pith, it is actually endarch. If the protoxylem is facing towards the outside, it is called the exarch. So, now the phloem transport food materials usually from leaves and the other parts to the plant. Phloem in angiosperm is composed of sieve tube cells, companion cells and phloem parenchyma. So phloem in angiosperm is made of sieve tube cells, phloem parenchyma and companion cells and phloem fibers. In gymnosperms, they do not have sieve tube cells and companion cells. So what do they have instead? They have albuminous cells and sieve cells. Sieve tube elements are long tube-like structures arranged longitudinally and they are associated with the companion cells. Their end walls are perforated in a sieve-like manner to form the sieve plates. A mature sieve element possess peripheral cytoplasm and a large vacuole, but they lack a nucleus. So what happens is, as a result, they share their nucleus with the companion cells. So the function of the sieve tubes are controlled by the nucleus of the companion cells. Now, the companion cells are specialized parenchymatous cells which are closely associated with the sieve tube elements. Sieve tube elements and companion cells are connected by pit fields which is present in between their common longitudinal walls. The companion cells help in maintaining the pressure gradient in the sieve tube cells. Phloem parenchyma is made of elongated tapering cylindrical walls which are dense cytoplasm and nucleus. The wall is composed of cellulose and pit through which the plasmodesmatal connections exist between the cells. The phloem parenchyma store food material and other substances like raisins too. So as I told you earlier, tannin in raisin, latex and mucilage. Phloem parenchyma is absent and it is mostly in monocotyledons. Phloem fibers are actually known as the bast fibers, which is made up of sclerenchymatous cells, which is dead. So usually the phloem fibers provide us with commercial fibers like hemp and jute. That is very important, asked in a lot of times. They are generally much elongated, unbranched, and they have a pointed needle-like apices. And the walls of the phloem is quite thick. And at maturity, these fibers lose their protoplasm and their dead. Phloem fibers, jute, flax, and hemp are commercially used. Now, the primary phloem consists of narrow sieve tube cells, which are referred to as the protophloem. And the later formed phloem, which is bigger sieve tube, is called the metaphloem. So the first primary phloem consists of narrow sieve tubes, that is called the protoploem. From the protoploem, the phloem that develops to a bigger sieve tube cell is called the metaphloem. Now moving on to the next part, that is the tissue system. In the paragraph, nothing much is important and mentioned also. Now we are moving on to the next one, that is the epidermal tissue system. That is a type of tissue system. We have three types of tissue system, that is the epidermal tissue system, ground tissue system and vascular tissue system. Moving on to the first one. Epidermal tissue system forms the outermost converging whole plant body comprising of the epidermal cells, stomata and the epidermal appendages and the trichomes and hairs. The epidermis is the outermost layer of the primary plant body. It is made up of elongated, compactly arranged cells which are continuous layer. Epidermis is usually single-layered. Epidermal cells are parenchymatous since they are required for photosynthesis, secretion, etc. With a small amount of cytoplasm lining in the wall and with a large vacuole. Now the storage of the epidermis is often covered by a waxy thick cuticle which prevents the loss of water. See, parenchymatous cells is for photosynthesis. So when there is over absorption of light or water from the plants, as a result what happens is there is a wax which prevents the loss of water. Cuticle is actually absent in the roots because roots does not need such kind of a feature. Stomata are the structures which prevent the epidermis of the leaves. Now, The stomata regulate the process of transpiration and gaseous exchange. Each stoma is composed of two bean-shaped cells called the guard cells, which regulates the opening and closing. Outer walls of the guard cells are usually generally dumbbell shaped, and the outer walls of the guard cells from the stomatal pore are thin and inner towards the stomatal pore. So we have a pore of the stomata which is guarded by the guard cells, and as you can see in figure 6.3, there are tiny green dots there. Those are actually the chloroplast, so which are highly thickened. Now the guard cells possess chloroplast which regulate the opening and closing, as I told you. Sometimes a few epidermal cells known guard cells become specialized in their shape and size, and they are known as subsidiary cells. So after the chloroplast, the guard cells, there is a tiny dark green structure there, that is the subsidiary cells. The stomatal aperture guard the cell, and the surrounding subsidiary cells are together guarded by the stomatal apparatus. So first comes the stomatal apparatus, and that is in the epidermal cells. Then comes the subsidiary cells, guard cells, stomatal pore. In the guard cells, there are tiny dark green pigments which is known as the chloroplast. Now, the cells of the epidermis bear a number of hairs. The root hair are unicellular elongations of the epidermal which help to absorb water, minerals from the soil. On the other hand, on the stem, epidermal hairs are called the trichomes. Trichomes in the shoot system are usually multicellular. They may be branched or unbranched, soft and stiff. They even may be secretory too. The combs help in preventing the water loss due to transpiration. Moving on to the second type, that is the ground tissue system. All the tissues exhibit except epidermis and the vascular bundles constitute the ground tissue. Of simple tissues such as parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Parenchymatous cells are usually present in the cortex of pericycle, pith and medullary rays, in the primary stem and roots. In leaves, the ground tissue consists of thin wall of chloroplast containing cells called the mesophyll. So mesophyll is present in the ground tissue. Now moving on to the very last type of tissue system, that is the vascular tissue system. Vascular system consists of complex tissues, that is the xylem and phloem. The xylem and phloem together constitute the vascular bundle. So xylem and phloem together, that is the vascular bundle. And in between the xylem and phloem, there is a division that is known as the cambium. So that is only present in dicots. So vascular bundles present in the presence of cambium possess the ability to form secondary xylem and phloem. So since cambium is not present in monocots, they cannot undergo secondary division. So hence they are called open vascular bundles. In monocots, the vascular bundles have no cambium present in them. They have no cambium, due to which they have a closed system. Now, xylem and phloem within a vascular bundle are arranged in alternate manner along with different radii, and arrangement is called radial, such as in roots. In conjoined type of vascular bundles, xylem and phloem are jointly situated along with the same radius of vascular bundle. Such vascular bundles are common in stem and leaves. The conjoined vascular bundles usually have phloem located on the outer side of the xylem. Now moving on to the anatomy of dicotyledonous and monocotyledonous plants. For a better understanding of tissue organization, roots, stem and leaves, it is convenient to study that a transverse section of the mature zone of these organs. Dicotyledonous root. Look at figure 6.6, that is on the next page, page number 91. It shows a transverse section of the sunflower and internal tissue. Now, the outermost layer is called the epiblemma. So the epidermis ki outermost layer is known as the epiblemma, and many of the cells of the epiblemma protrude in the form of unicellular root hairs. The cortex consists of several layers of thin-walled parenchyma cells with intercellular spaces. The innermost layer is called the cortex, which is the endodermis. Now you need to remember that cortex is actually parenchymatous cells with intercellular spaces called cortex, which is called the endodermis. That is the endodermis part, which is below the epidermis part or the epiblemma. Now, it comprises of a single layer of barrel-shaped cells without any intercellular spaces. The tangential as well as radial walls of the endodermal cells have a deposition of water permeable axial material called the suberin in Casparian strips. So next to the endodermis, there are few layers of thick walled parenchymatous cells, which is referred to as the pericycle. Initiation of the lateral roots and vascular cambium during the secondary growth takes place in the pericycle. So pericycle is actually parenchymatous cell. Now, what is the role of the Casparian strip is actually the water from the root hair can travel easily through the intercellular spaces of the cortex. So when it reaches the pericycle, what happens is, or the Casparian strip, first it reaches the Casparian strip and then the pericycle. So when they reach the Casparian strip, there is a filtration process which goes on. So they allow only the important materials to get in. So the Casparian strip is actually a water permeable waxy material made up of suberin. Suberin word is very important, Casparian strip. Okay. And then comes the pericycle. Now from the pericycle, the lateral roots during the secondary growth takes place. Pith is a small, inconspicuous, and the parenchymatous cells which lie between the xylem and the phloem are called the conjunctive tissues. Conspicuous means they are actually not visible. That visible in case of dicot root. Usually 2 to 4 xylem and phloem patches later on a cambium ring develops between the xylem and phloem. All the tissues on the inner side of the endodermis such as pericycle, vascular bundles, pith constitute the stele. So there will be the Casparian strip, right? The Casparian strip, after that there is a very circle that is actually the stele. Now you need to remember that in dicot root, the phloem and the xylem are actually in a plus sign. The one which is dissecting part is actually the pith present, which is not much visible. Whereas on monocot is actually present in a shape of a sun, which is the protoxylem. Metaxylem is present in a shape of sun, which is in 6 parts. Now, moving on. The anatomy of monocot is similar to that of dicot. It has an epidermis, cortex, endodermis, pericycle, vascular bundle and pith. As compared to the dicot root, which had a fewer xylem or phloem bundle, which is the vascular bundle, but here they have more xylem and phloem bundle in the monocot. Pith is very large and well developed. Monocot roots does not undergo any secondary growth. So monocot roots does not undergo any secondary growth. Now dicot stem. The transverse section of a typical young dicotyledonous stem is shown that the epidermis in the outermost protective layer of the stem. So it is shown in figure 6.7. Dicot is figure A. It's like the B part, which is monocot, it's like seeds in the watermelon. Now, covered thin layer of cuticle may bear trichomes and with a few stomata. Now, the cells arranged in multiple layers between the epidermis and the pericycle constitute the cortex. It consists of 3 subzones. The outer, which is called the hypodermis, consists of few layers of collenchymatous cells just below the epidermis, which provide mechanical strength to the young stem. Now, cortical layers below the hypodermis constitute rounded thin parenchymatous cells, which is conspicuous. Now, conspicuous means which is now visible. Non-conspicuous, which means not visible. With intercellular spaces, the innermost layer of the cortex is called the endodermis. The cells of the endodermis are rich in starch grains layer and they are referred to as starch sheath. Now, the pericycle is present on the inner side of the endodermis above the phloem in the form of a semilunar patches of the sclerenchyma. In between the vascular bundle with a few layers of radially placed parenchymatous cell which constitute medullary rays, a large number of vascular bundles are arranged in a ring. A ring arrangement of vascular bundles is a characteristic of dicot stem. Each vascular bundle is actually conjoined with endarch protoxylem. So endarch, which means the protoxylem is actually present towards the inside. Now, a number of rounded parenchymatous cells with large intercellular spaces which occupy the central portion of the stem is called the pith, as I told you earlier. Now moving on to the monocotyledonous stem. Now monocotyledon stem is actually sclerenchymatous hypodermis. It has a large number of scattered bundles as you can see in figure 6.7. Each of them are surrounded by sclerenchymatous bundle sheath, a large conspicuous parenchymatous ground tissue. Vascular bundles are conjoined and they are closed. Vascular bundles are generally smaller and centrally located. Phloem parenchyma is absent in case of monocotyledonous. Water containing cavities are present in the vascular bundle. Now moving on to a section anatomy of the dicot leaf. Dicot leaf is actually dorsiventral. Now the ventral section of the dorsiventral leaf through which the lamina shows three main parts, which is mainly the epidermis, mesophyll and the vascular system. Now the epidermis is the very first layer, then comes the collenchyma, then comes the parenchyma and then comes the endodermis. After that there is a layer of pericycle, and then below that comes the phloem, cambium and then which divides the xylem. Phloem and then cambium, which from where the secondary growth takes place, and then we have the metaxylem and the protoxylem. So protoxylem is towards the pith, that means it is endark. Now mesophyll, the tissue between the upper and the lower epidermis is called the mesophyll. Mesophyll which possess chloroplast carry out photosynthesis, which is made up of parenchyma. Now it has two types of palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma. Adaxially placed palisade parenchyma is made up of elongated cells which are arranged vertically and parallel to each other. The oval and round and loosely arranged spongy parenchyma is situated below the palisade cells and extends to the lower epidermis. There are numerous large spaces and air cavities between them. Then the vascular system includes the vascular bundle, which can be seen in vein size in the midrib. Vascular bundle, in the sense it is by xylem and phloem. Now it is surrounded by bundle sheath cells, as you can see in figure 6.7 B part. In not B, in the A part towards your right side there is epidermis collenchyma, a very dorsiventral portion of the picture. Now monocotyledons are usually isobilateral. Now isobilateral, I hope this word is very familiar. It is also present in another one, that is the parenchyma. Anatomy of isobilateral leaf is similar to that of dorsiventral leaf in many ways. It shows the following characteristic differences. In the isobilateral leaf, stomata is present on both surface of the epidermis and the mesophyll is not differentiated into a palisade, spongy parenchyma, etc. In grasses, certain adaxial epidermal cells along with the veins modify themselves into large, empty and colorless cells. These are called the bulliform cells. The bulliform cells in the leaves have been absorbed by water and they have become turgid. The leaf surface is exposed. When they are flaccid due to water stress, they make the leaves curl towards inside to minimize the loss of water. The parallel venation in monocot leaves is reflected in the near similar sizes of the vascular bundles except in the main veins. Now, moving on to the very last topic, that is the secondary growth. Secondary growth is actually seen only in dicot because of the presence of cambium or the pith also. Now the growth of the roots and stem in the length with help of the apical meristem is called the primary growth. Apart from the primary growth, most of the dicots exhibit an increase in girth. This increase is called secondary growth. The tissues involved in the secondary growth is actually two lateral meristem, that is the vascular cambium and the core cambium. So two lateral meristem, lateral means towards from the sides. That is why lateral meristem from the vascular cambium and the core cambium. From the pith actually they increase. Now moving on to first one, vascular cambium. Meristematic layer is responsible for the cutting of vascular tissue, xylem and the phloem, and it is called the vascular cambium. Now in young stem it is present in patches in single layer between the phloem and the xylem. Later it forms a complete ring. In dicot stems, the cells of the cambium present between the primary xylem and the primary phloem is called the intrafascicular cambium. So the cambium present between the primary xylem and the phloem is called intrafascicular cambium. Now, in cells of the medullary race adjoining the intrafascicular cambium become meristematic and they form the interfascicular cambium. So the cells of the medullary race joining with the intrafascicular cambium forms the interfascicular cambium. Thus it forms a continuous ring like that. Now, what is the activity of the cambial ring? The cambial ring forms an active and begins to cut from new cells, both towards the inner and outer sides. The cells cut off towards the pith and they mature into the secondary xylem. Then, the cells cut off from towards the periphery and they mature into secondary phloem. So, if they cut from the pith, they mature into the xylem. If they cut off from the periphery, they mature into the secondary phloem. The cambium is generally more active towards the inner side than on the outer. As a result, amount of secondary xylem produces more than the secondary phloem. Now what happens is, due to the rapid formation of the secondary xylem and secondary phloem, the primary xylem and the primary phloem are actually crushed due to the formation. The primary xylem, however, remains more and less intact or in towards the center. At some places, the cambium forms a narrow band of parenchyma which possess a secondary xylem and a secondary phloem. In radial direction, the same, they are secondary medullary rays. Now, the activity of the cambium is under control of many physiological factors like temperature, etc., environmental factors. In temperature regions, the climatic conditions are also very important and they are not uniform throughout the year. In spring season, what happens is cambium is very active and produce a large number of xylary elements having vessels and activities with wider activities. As a result, the wood formed during this season is called the spring wood, or it is also known as the early wood. Whereas in winter, the cambium is very less active and forms few xylary elements with narrow vessels. So wider vessels in spring and narrow vessels in winter. That is why it is known as autumn wood or late wood. The spring wood is lighter in color and it has lower density, whereas autumn wood is darker and has higher density. The two kinds of wood appear in alternate concentric circles. That is why it is known as the annual ring. Annual rings are usually cut, and what happens, there is another interesting fact is that the annual ring, when we count the annual ring, we can approximately count the age of the tree. Now moving on to heartwood and sapwood. The later part of the secondary xylem is actually dark brown due to the deposition of organic compounds like tannins, resins, oil and gum in the central innermost layers of the stem. Now these substances make it hard, endurable, resistant to the attack of microorganism and insect. This region, which comprises of the dead elements, which is highly lignified, is called the heartwood. That is actually the heart of the wood in general. Also, we can take it like, since in our body, heart protects the entire circulation. It does everything required. At the same way, the heartwood, that is the heart in the tree, protects it from microorganism, insects, etc. So the peripheral region of the secondary xylem is lighter in color and it is known as the sapwood. It is involved in the condition of water minerals from root to the leaf. That is it about sapwood. Moving on to the cork cambium. As the stem continues to increase in girth due to the activity of the vascular cambium, the outer cortical and the epidermal layers gets broken and need to be released to be replaced to provide new protective cell layers. So, another meristematic tissue is called the cork cambium or the phellogen, which develops usually in narrow cortex region. Phellogen is a couple of layers thick, made up of narrow, thin, nearly rectangular cells. Phellogen cuts off both the sides of the cell. The outer cells differentiate into the cork or the phellem. The inner cells differentiated into the secondary cortex or the phelloderm. So the cork is impervious to water due to suberin deposition. Now, I hope you have heard about suberin. Suberin is actually present in the Casparian strip. Now, phellogen, phelloderm and the phellem are collectively known as the periderm. So the phellogen plus phelloderm is equal to the periderm. Due to the activity of the cork cambium, pressure builds up in the remaining layers of the peripheral to the phellem, and ultimately these layers die in slog off. Bark is actually a non-technical term which refers to the tissues exterior to the vascular cambium. Now here it is actually something measured as early bark or soft bark. And towards the end of the season, the hard, that is the bark in the sense the outer. I hope you have seen in figure 6.7 in the trees there are cracks, right? That is actually the bark. So late bark, which is formed at the end of the season, which is also known as the hard bark. Now moving on. Now, at certain regions, the phloem cuts off closely arranged parenchymatous cells on the outer side instead of the cork cells. These parenchymatous cells soon rupture in the epidermis. Those formed, that is actually in lens-like shape. That is why they are called as lenticels. They permit the exchange of gases between the outer atmosphere and the internal tissue. And they mostly occur in woody trees. Now moving on to the secondary growth in roots. In dicot root, the vascular cambium is completely secondary in origin. It originates from the tissue located below the phloem bundle, a portion of the pericycle tissue. Above the protoxylem forms a complete continuous wavy ring which later becomes circular. Now in the next page they have just shown us a figure about what is it, and you need to remember that secondary growth also occur in stems and roots of gymnosperms but not in angiosperm. Secondary growth does not occur in monocots too. So that is the end of this chapter, that is anatomy in flowering plants. Now stay tuned for the next chapter, that is morphology. Hope this chapter is thorough. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned. Until then, God bless you all.